Welcome to the Legal Forum. Today's topic is how to find and hire a lawyer. This program is presented by the San Fernando Valley Bar Association, the Legal Referral and Information Service, and this station. The goal of this program is to create a better understanding in the community of the legal profession which operates in it. This is the second of 5 shows on various legal topics. Now, before we get to our topic today, I'd like to introduce our panel of distinguished panelists. Starting on my immediate left is Heather Atkinson. Heather is in private practice. She practices business, entertainment, and international law. Her office is here in the Valley. She's a trustee of the San Fernando Valley Bar Association and originally practiced in Jamaica, so she brings a very interesting international perspective to our discussions here today. To her left is Neil Dudovitz. Neil is the executive director of the San Fernando Valley Neighborhood Legal Services. They provide legal services to those people who are low income in the San Fernando Valley. Their offices are in Pacoima. To his left, Barbara Jean Penny. Barbara Jean is a family law lawyer. Her offices are also here in the Valley. She's past president of the San Fernando Valley Bar Association and was co-founder of the Family Law Center. The Family Law Center provided legal services in the family law realm to the middle class. To her left, David Laufer. David is a partner in a 45-member firm here in the Valley. Their office is in Woodland Hills, and he's primarily a business attorney handling sales and acquisitions. So welcome to all of you, and thank you for spending your time here today with us. Let's jump right into it. Our topic is how to find and hire a lawyer, so we'll start off with the find before we get to the hire. How can somebody out there listening find a lawyer? Barbara Jean.
Well, first of all, I think it's best to talk to your friends and see if they have some ideas on who you should contact. I think that a referral from a friend is always the best way to find out the reputation of the attorney that you may be talking to. Other than that, I have recommended to people in San Diego, places I don't practice. I've told them go down, sit in the courthouse, see what who you're impressed by. But best of all, I think, is the lawyer referral services that the local bar associations have. So I think almost every area has a lawyer referral service that they can look to.
In the San Fernando Valley, obviously the San Fernando Valley Bar Association is a good place to look for a lawyer. If you belong to an association like a union, a department owners association, any group that is advised by a lawyer, you can contact those people, and with respect to specific problems, you can get some names of lawyers that are experts in those areas.
Of course, I would add, if you are a poor person or lower income, we do have the San Fernando Valley Neighborhood Legal Services, which provides free civil legal services for poor people, and we cover all of the San Fernando Valley, and as far as Lancaster, Palmdale, and Santa Clarita.
Great. Well, what about the obvious, though? I think we've missed the obvious. What about television commercials? Are those any good?
Well, it depends which ones you're viewing. I think what you're asking is what do we think about lawyers advertising? I support the First Amendment and believe lawyers have a right to advertise, but I much prefer to have people contact individuals that have been represented by lawyers and get direct information about the lawyer that they're going to hire and do some investigation. But I support the right of lawyers to advertise.
Well, what about Yellow Pages? I was going through the Yellow Pages the other day, and attorneys are right after appliances. Is that a good way to find an attorney, through the Yellow Pages?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that if you follow Dave's advice, which is you have to do a little bit of your own investigating. How do you find other kinds of services? You call up and then you start talking to people, and I think that you can use the Yellow Pages if you don't know any other people. I also would heartily endorse the idea of talking to friends, of people who lawyers they've had experience with.
One of the problems with the Yellow Pages, and I get this quite often, is that you can't talk to the attorney. So how can you possibly get a flavor for the person that you're going to go in to see if you call up and you're trying to find something out about them and you can't talk personally to the attorney? So that becomes a problem. I think if you call the attorney's office through the Yellow Pages and ask if they have a 10-minute or a 20-minute free consultation and you go in, then I think that would work.
I think one other source is web pages, the internet. Most attorneys or most attorney directories are listed on the internet and are accessible for free. And usually there is a biography of the attorney, their practice areas, their background, their age. little personal things about the attorney which may endear or make the relationship with the attorney a little bit more personable before you make that phone call. So use the directories, use whatever is available to you, but also get some background information, and there is background information on most attorneys.
Fascinating. Just several months ago, that probably wouldn't have even come up. Go to the internet to find an attorney, the World Wide Web to find local counsel. Fascinating. So times are changing. No shortcuts, is that what I'm hearing everybody say? No shortcuts to finding a lawyer? Go out and interview? Check a couple people out?
Well, the attorney-client relationship is a relationship. It's not black and white. It's an ongoing collaborative arrangement over time until the issue is solved. So you need to find out whether or not that attorney fits your expectation, fits your lifestyle, and will give you what you want. And so I think as much information as you can give to the attorney about your expectation, as much information as you can learn from the attorney about the way in which he or she serves their client, then I think that will help you in finding somebody who will give you the result you want.
Bottom line is always fees. Should a lawyer charge for an interview?
Most attorneys, I know I do, I usually give a half-hour complimentary consultation to see if there is that relationship which can sustain the rigors of whatever the issue is that the person has come to consult with me on. And I don't think that's peculiar to me. I think most attorneys give a half-hour consultation to see if there's a match.
So we've got a portion of our day where we're unable to generate revenue. How do the people on the panel feel then about people coming in to interview us to represent them?
Well, I think that's part of the work we do. We understand that it's important for people to have access to information, and it's part of our function to give that information, and we give it without charge. Now, in my firm, we will spend an hour of time to determine whether or not we can be of assistance and whether or not that client feels comfortable with the assistance that we can provide. And I think that's generally true of all lawyers.
I think it's a two-way street, though. You know, every lawyer doesn't want to take every client that comes in, just like every client doesn't want to hire every lawyer. I think that you have to find out that the two of you are in tune to each other, that you don't have some sort of a personality conflict, so that you can do the best job that you can do for that client. But there are a lot of attorneys out there that they can go interview that they'll be very comfortable with. And so I think it's really definitely a two-way street.
And it's also true that not every problem that you perceive as a legal problem is really a legal problem. And so part of this process is figuring out whether you really have a need for a lawyer, or maybe your problem can be resolved in some other way. And I think the other part of it also is a trust that I think we've all sort of talked about, which is that attorney-client relationship is a special relationship, and you need to have trust each other, and that requires getting to know each other a little bit.
Well, now this is interesting. This is the third time in a very short period of time here that we've talked about it being a two-way street and a special kind of relationship. Let's talk a little bit about how to foster, develop that. Are there 2 or 3 things that you would say, look for this when interviewing or hiring an attorney? Any things that are common all the way across the board?
Well, that's pretty difficult because, first of all, I imagine every area of law has different things that you may be looking for. But I know, for instance, in the family law arena, I think that you would want someone that is sympathetic to the problems that you're going through. First of all, I mean, this is a very emotional time for these people. You don't want someone, and I hear this quite often, all that attorney cared about was how much, when am I going to get my retainer and how much money is it and all this sort of thing. I think that people need to know that the attorney cares about them and cares about their case, and I think that this takes a little bit of time.
I think it's important. I want to emphasize what Barbara said, and I think what Heather said is that you select an individual, or you find an individual that has experience in that area of the law. The law is very complex, and a person like Barbara that's an expert in divorce and matrimony law may not be an expert in antitrust law. So if you have an antitrust problem involving your business, you need someone that knows antitrust law, and I think the client needs to verify that the individual that they're speaking to has actually had experience in that area. I think that's one of the key ways to avoid conflict between client and lawyer, and it's also very important to get a problem solved in an efficient way.
another part of that experience is also where or how your problem is going to be resolved. If it's a lawsuit that's going to involve litigation, it helps to have a lawyer who has some experience in working in the courtroom. If it's a business negotiation, somebody who has experience that way. If it's dealing with governmental forms and regulations, people have different experiences in that arena as well. So it's not just the subject matter, but it's also the arena in which the problem is going to be handled.
So different types of lawyers for different types of matters, and you've got to go out and really ferret somebody out that's appropriate for your particular needs. Interesting. I had always perceived it as being a lot more simple than that. But I think it's important for people to learn to be good consumers of legal services, which is one of the aspects of what we do. We provide legal services.
Let me add that I don't think you always need the most skilled person in a very small area to represent you. Sometimes the best person for your case is somebody who's a little more generalist and is in your local community. So it really depends on the kind of problem as to which lawyer might be the best for you.
Also, there are issues such as time availability, how much money the client has got to spend, and just a realistic expectation of can you work with this person? Do I need somebody who's going to hold my hand through this, or do I need somebody who just knows the law and is going to document and prepare papers for me? So I think the client needs to be realistic in terms of their own personality and determine their expectation, match that expectation with the client's time, availability, and pricing.
Let's flesh out this relationship just a little bit further. Is there any kind of Bill of Rights or basic requirements that a client should expect of their lawyer? And conversely, because we said it's a two-way street, are there some basic requirements that lawyers can expect of their clients?
For sure. The state bar in California and the county bars have rights that they publish that clients have. They include the right to a written contract embodying the terms of the engagement, the legal fees. We have a duty to communicate timely with our client. We have a duty to explain the procedures we're going to utilize. We have a duty to explain our bills and to turn over to clients files and papers and to answer those questions. So certainly clients have, as you've called them, David, a Bill of Rights, which enhances the communication between the lawyer and the client.
Now, the other thing, too, is that individual firms will have certain practices. They'll have practices which enhance or endear them to their clients. So you should probe a little bit more and ask what's the firm's practice or what's the attorney's practice for, say, the return of phone calls. Is it the secretary who's going to return the phone call, or is it another attorney in the firm, or the paralegal who's working on it? Does the client expect to have a phone call within a half an hour, or is 24 hours acceptable? Little things like that are what I think build the relationship and the trust between the parties.
But it's a two-way street. I think it's important that the public understand as well what we as lawyers expect from clients. Is there any basic set of things or requirements that we expect from clients?
We expect them to be honest with us. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us to advocate their side of the case. I think that a lot of clients try to decide what's important. I like to sit back and listen to everything they have to say because they don't know what's important. And you might glean out of that something very important that they wouldn't have said to you if you didn't just sit back and listen to what they have to say and just wanted specific questions answered. And I think that we want them to, I know that we want them to listen to us when we're giving them some advice, because our advice is usually based on years of experience. I think those are very important things.
One thing I value is open communication with the client, as Barbara said. I like the communication to go both ways. And if at all possible, being primarily a transactional attorney, I like being involved with the client's business or whatever it is that's potentially likely to get them into an issue with somebody else. I like getting involved before everything comes to a head. Because once it comes to a head, usually it becomes not only more expensive, but the client is more agitated, they do not communicate as comfortably, and their whole expectation changes. So I like open communications and communications as early as possible.
I also, and we encourage in our program, a lot of involvement with the client and being directly involved in helping work out and resolve the problem. So I think it is a two-way street, and the most sort of effective cases that I can think about are ones where the client understood, was able to participate, and responsive to the needs that the lawyers have to produce material and information in a timely fashion, et cetera. So I do think if it works correctly, that you do have communication going both from the lawyer to the client and from the client to the lawyer.
Sometimes it's critical for the client to explain the technicalities in a particular transaction or dispute, because it may involve an engineering question, may involve a patent question, and it's critical that the client, who may be an engineer, tells the lawyer, look, this is the way this thing's supposed to work. So the lawyer has a critical role to advocate and to pursue and to negotiate, but the client has to be an active participant. It's a collaborative effort if it's going to work well.
Well, let's move to the next step then. Let's assume that we've identified the appropriate lawyer to handle the particular matter for us. How do we go about compensating that lawyer? Are there different ways that lawyers can get paid?
Well, there are definitely different ways that a lawyer can be paid. All of us, at least in the family law field, we require a retainer up front. The reason for that is that once we make an appearance in the court system on behalf of that client, we're there. We can't just say, okay, I'll make an appearance today, but I'm not going to be there tomorrow. Either the client would have to substitute us out, or we'd have to make a motion with the court. So once you're hired by that client, you have a lot of time that you're going to be giving to that client. So retainers, in my business anyway, are very important, and we're paid on an hourly basis. Of course, in some other cases, in personal injury cases, it's on a percentage of the case. And I know that some people or some attorneys take credit cards. There are just many different ways that you can compensate a lawyer.
So they use credit cards to finance their legal purchase, so to speak?
Yes, some of them do.
Okay. Other ways?
Yes, some lawyers are working on a project basis. For example, if you help a businessman sell his business, you have a set fee, and at the conclusion of the sale, you get a set fee for helping that person sell his business. So it's a project set fee contingent on the closing.
Our practice is bankruptcy, and it's entirely flat fee, at least in the Chapter 7 realm. And we've always liked that because the client knows exactly what the fee is going to be, and we know exactly what the client's going to pay. Now, obviously, that has its advantages and disadvantages. There are some instances where clients will not need the full range of services that we provide, so maybe they're overpaying for that service. In some instances, we've had people who call us every single day, and we respond to those calls, but we lose money on the case. It's not a profitable situation. So there are advantages and disadvantages of every different way of being compensated, and different fees are chargeable for different types of matters. Other ways attorneys can be compensated.
Well, I want to go back to something. Of course, if you're low income, you can get legal services for free, but I want to go back to something that David said, which is important as we talk about the different ways, and that is for people to understand that because there are different ways, it's important that individuals do understand and have a clear understanding of how they are going to pay when they engage a lawyer, and you do have rights to make sure that's in writing, and you should make sure you understand it. Don't feel a need to just nod your head and say yes, and then you come back the next day and say, I don't understand. You do have a right, and because there are different ways, it's particularly important that you work that out with the lawyer from the beginning.
So there's a clear understanding.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we all agree on is that fees are negotiable. I think the client and the lawyer, depending on the matter, agree on a formula. I just heard about Stanford University taking their legal budget and cutting it 20% and then hiring a law firm saying you're going to do all of our legal work in every area that we have problems in, and you're going to do it for 20% less than we paid last year because we can't afford to educate our students and at the same time have our legal fees go up. So we see creative ways to bring services to both business and to the middle class, and I think very soon we're going to see the legal HMOs form where through union activity and employers you're going to see access to consultation and legal services that way for a set fee.
Well, let me play devil's advocate just for a minute. I've got a 35-year-old business that I'm selling, and I come to you and I need you to handle that transaction because of your unique skills.
Right.
What kind of a negotiation is that? Don't you kind of have the upper hand since you're the expert in the field?
No, you've got over 90,000 active lawyers in the state of California, and no matter how talented I may think I am, there are thousands of lawyers that have the skill to do that sale, and they're not only lawyers, they're investment bankers that can do it and advise lawyers, advise businesses. There's also accounting firms that do the same thing. You'd be surprised how many providers of services in addition to lawyers are available to assist in the sale of a business.
The difference between attorneys is what the client perceives as the enhanced value that that client brings to the table. Is that client's office, is that attorney's office in Beverly Hills? Do I need a Beverly Hills attorney to do a particular job? Is it important that I have that image? Or is this a plain meat and potatoes type transaction that I can give the attorney instructions by fax, by telephone, and we meet once per month? So those kinds of perceptions by the client in terms of what their need is and the enhanced services which a big or a small firm may bring to the transaction is what's going to influence the leverage of and the negotiation with regards to cost and price.
I want to go on record in saying that Woodland Hills is every bit as good as Beverly Hills.
I want to get back to this comment that you made about 90,000 lawyers. That sounds incredibly competitive. And how does the public go about using that to their advantage in a negotiation?
By first of all realizing that fees are negotiable and taking the necessary time to spend as much time in selecting a lawyer as they go when they select products in a store or a department store. You shop around for your other purchases, and you should shop around for your legal services. And as Heather has said, you got to look for someone that can do the job, has the expertise, and you've got to see 2 or 3 people, and then you can negotiate.
Even personal injury?
Absolutely.
Everyone says to me, well, the standard deal is this much, and that's the standard, and even that can be negotiated.
I think those are people who haven't gone back, haven't asked questions beyond that. Sure, when someone has to have an initial position as to what their fee is, but again, it depends on what you need and what it will take for your particular case, and those are going to vary, and lawyers are willing to negotiate a fee, but if you just get an answer on a telephone and don't ask the next question, you won't know that.
I include in my agreements that my fees are negotiable, but on the other side, I expect the clients to assist me, not to negotiate the fee down and then expect or spend a lot of unnecessary time on issues which we have already resolved.
I got a flyer on my car in a shopping center that said I'll charge 50% less than any other attorney. And, so you could go and you could look at that person, but I think people need to be very, very careful. While you're out there shopping, you want to make sure that you're getting someone who's going to follow through with the job and that's going to do the best job, and that's not, you can also make up 50% on the hours that you bill, So you have to really take a look at the number of hours. And by the way, there is another way to hire an attorney, and that is services for services. I know that some attorneys have had some contractors do some work for them. Some have had tree trimmers do some work for them. Yes. I know some that have had typing services done for them. So there are other things that you can talk to the attorney about other than how many dollars is this going to cost me.
It's a changing world, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Let's talk about now how to bring this agreement together. We've identified the lawyer. We've talked to the lawyer about the fee arrangement. Do you put it in writing?
Yes, you have to have a retainer agreement.
In all cases?
If the fee is $1,000 or more, then the State Bar requires that it be put in writing. In addition, for certain contingency fee agreements, they have to be put in writing.
We put all of our we have a written retainer agreement with all of our clients, even though there's no fees. And the reason for it is to make sure that we all understand what the lawyer's going to do, what the goals of the case are, and the responsibilities of the lawyer and the responsibilities of the client. Because even if there's not a fee, the client has some responsibilities in being able to provide information when you need it, being able to come to your deposition at the right time, etc. So we definitely put our agreements in writing, and I guess I would encourage people who go to lawyers to get the agreements made in writing if the lawyer doesn't already offer that to you.
At our firm, we say that agreements are only as good as the paper that they're written on. It's kind of an interesting way to look at it. If a matter isn't over, if a case isn't over, can someone discharge their attorney? Can you change lawyers midstream?
Absolutely. If it doesn't interfere with the process, for example, if there hasn't been a court order, Barbara has alluded to the fact that some courts will not permit a lawyer to be discharged if it's going to disrupt the process or result in a continuance and justice being delayed. But the client generally has a right to fire a lawyer, and unless it's disruptive, that's their absolute right, and doesn't have to be with cause. It may be that their personalities don't mesh, or they don't like their attitudes, so they have an absolute right to do that.
I don't think everybody in the public always understands that one of the clear requirements of the attorney-client relationship is the client, not the attorney, makes the decisions and controls. And so I think it's clear, for no reason at all, you can call up your lawyer and say, I want to hire somebody else tomorrow. And that's it. As lawyers, we must abide by that decision.
The problem is it can be very costly, depending on how far into the case you are. It really costs more to bring yourself up to speed. So I think that when you're looking to change a lawyer because you perceive there's a problem, that it's up to other lawyers that you call to explain maybe the process that has taken place and that it may not be best for them to change lawyers.
And the likelihood of increased fees.
Yes.
All right, that's all the time we have. I'm going to cut you off. I know as lawyers we want to keep talking and talking, but I want to thank our panelists. It's been a fascinating insight into the attorney-client relationship and how to go out and hire an attorney. It's our hope that this program will foster a greater relationship between the community and the lawyers in it. I hope that if somebody's sitting at home and they say, gee, I understand a little bit, or if you have a question, that you write us. Let us know what you think at the Valley Bar Association, 5435 Balboa Boulevard, Encino, California, 91316. Look for our next show on another legal topic. Thank you for watching.